Have you ever been in a conflict that just escalates and quickly becomes damaging and out of control? Or have you ever found yourself in situations where you just feel flooded by your emotions and you end up saying or doing things that later you regret? I'm Michael Clark with the Ananias Foundation, and today we're going to talk about a plan that can help you break out of this pattern of escalation of emotional flooding that quickly leads to behavior that we want to change. If you want to stop causing harm in your relationships, you're on the right path. This is Journey of Change, a video series to help you become the safe, loving partner you were meant to be. So here's the secret to breaking out of that escalation, of that emotional flooding that often leads to behavior that we want to change. And the secret is that we need to insert time. Now, I want to share with you today a plan that you can use to put some time in between whatever triggers those strong emotions, whatever started that big conflict that you might be having, and getting to the solution and resolving that conflict. I want to introduce you to something called a timeout plan. This is a technique that will help us slow things down and to re-engage rational parts of our brain for a better outcome. Now, the timeout plan has some very specific provisions. And what I can tell you is that all of those provisions are in there for a reason. In fact, there's some risk that the timeout plan won't work at all, or it could even backfire if we ignore parts of those provisions. So let's talk through the timeout plan, what it involves, and how you can execute it well. The first provision of the timeout plan is, if possible and safe to do so, discuss the timeout plan with your partner in advance before you need it. Now, we make this recommendation because it will let your partner know what you'll be doing when you call timeout. That makes it easier for them to accept and less likely to interfere with you actually calling the timeout and following through with the rest of the plan. It's easy for our partners to feel abandoned or fearful that their voice is not going to be heard, or you're trying to end the relationship, you're never coming back if you take a timeout and they don't know about the plan. So tell them about it ahead of time. It makes it easier for them, which makes it easier for you. Second provision of the timeout plan is to identify your own signs that you're becoming angry in advance. This is the work that we talked about earlier in the session. It's identifying those physiological things that are happening in your body, or maybe the behavioral things, the patterns of actions that you typically do when you're becoming angry. Make sure that you have a good grasp of what those are and that you can identify those when they're happening. The third provision is, at the first sign of anger, at the first time you recognize any of those early warning signs, take the time out then. This is really important. It's a little bit like leaving the barn door open and the horses escape. It's a whole lot easier to round up the horses when they're really close to the barn door than after they've already headed for the hills. And the same thing is true with our emotions. The earlier we catch them, the easier it is to bring them back to a more steady state. The easier it is to catch that we need a timeout. You know, taking a timeout is not the same as giving in or being weak. On the contrary, it's actually a sign of great emotional control and a sign of strength. Number 4, focus on your own emotions. When you call a timeout, Focus on what you're feeling, not your partner. And even if your partner is becoming upset, or even if they're more upset than you are, you're relatively calm compared to them, still state it in a way that focuses on your emotions. I'm feeling upset. I'm starting to feel flooded. I need a timeout. Rather than telling our partner that they need a timeout, which never goes over well. Make it about you and your own emotions. That's always easier for our partner to hear. And they can never really logically argue that we're feeling upset. We're the only one that can know that. Number 5, tell your partner where you're going. This is another one of those things that we can do to reassure our partner that we're not going someplace dangerous, we're not going to be hurt, that you're in fact coming back and you will have that discussion with them. It helps alleviate their fear that something bad has happened to us and will help them allow us to get out the door. Number 6, tell your partner how long you're going to be gone. We really recommend a minimum of 45 or maybe 60 minutes. During this time, adrenaline is going to be burning off, and our brain is going to be switching from that lizard brain mode, which is probably still going to be engaged for the first 30 minutes. Once the hormones go down and the emotions start to drain away, then we still need some time to plan, how are we going to best handle this situation? What is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I'm thinking? What are the thoughts that created those strong emotions? How can I address those? And ultimately, how can I return to our discussion in a solid way, in a calm way, where I can listen and communicate without getting flooded with my emotions again? If you call time out and it's hours or days or weeks, if ever, that you get back to that conflict, that's not a good strategy. It's called stonewalling, and that's actually another form of abuse, is to control or manipulate the situation so that you just don't deal with problems, and we try to win those conflicts by just shutting the other person down. It causes a lot of damage to relationships, so I would highly, highly discourage you from taking too long a time. You want to give yourself enough time for the emotions to drain away, for your thinking brain to kick in, but not so long that it just frustrates your partner. Number 7, tell your partner that you would like to hear his or her point of view, and that the two of you can discuss whatever your conflict was about when you return. Again, this reassures your partner that you do intend to talk to them about the issue. Their voice, their opinion matters, and you intend to hear them out. Number 8, leave in a respectful way. To the extent that you can, get out the door in a matter-of-fact way without saying anything more that's damaging, without slamming the door, without making a big show. That's certainly going to set the tone for when you return. Grab your jacket, get your shoes on, whatever you need to get out the door, but get out as quickly as possible too. I tell people that it's a little bit like your house is on fire. You don't want to spend too much time getting out the door, collecting your belongings, changing your clothes, anything like that. Number 9, this is important. Return when you said you would. Now, if in fact you need more time, it's fine to contact your partner then and say, I'm still needing to cool down, and can you give me a few more minutes or another half hour or something like that, so that I can still come back and have a good conversation with you about it. It's okay to buy a little bit more time here, but it is absolutely important that you get back and you have that discussion. What this shows is that you're dependable And even if our partners resist the idea of us taking a timeout, by consistently returning when we said we would and engaging in that conversation, having that discussion with them that caused the conflict, will show them that this is a good technique and that this is really helpful to your relationship. So do your part, be dependable, and actually return when you said you would. Once you've made your timeout plan and maybe talk to your partner about it, I want to encourage you to practice it. At the very least, visualize yourself doing it. But even better yet, actually practice taking a timeout even if you don't need it. This will make it easier for you to do when you do need that time. So I'm going to practice right now taking a timeout. Now that I'm out practicing my timeout, let's talk about what to do and not to do while we're on a timeout. First, I recommend that you definitely get out. Don't stay, go to the bedroom and lock the door, or the garage or the basement. You want to get out because if you and your partner stay in close proximity to each other, it just makes it too easy for you to get back and re-engage. So definitely get out. I also recommend that you do what I'm doing, walk. Walking helps us burn off the adrenaline. The fresh air certainly helps us clear the mind. What I recommend that you don't do is to try to drive. Being upset, emotionally charged, angry, and then getting behind the wheel of a car, that's probably not a good idea. I strongly suggest too that you be alone. Don't call your buddy, your friend, your mom, your sister, your brother. This is a really good time for you to just be alone with your thoughts. Help clear your mind. I think it's important to consider what to think about while we're on our timeout as well. If we think about how wronged we were, how unfair that argument was, and then we start adding to it all of the other things that we thought were wrong and unfair, or we start thinking about all of our partner's flaws, we're just going to go back and feel even more emotionally charged, even worse than probably when we left. And that's not the objective. As an alternative, I suggest thinking about what you like and love about your partner. There's a reason why you got together to start with. So think about some of those reasons. You might also think about your partner compassionately. We all come into our relationships with a certain amount of baggage, emotional wounds from our past, things that we're overly sensitive to. So to the extent that you can see your partner that way and have compassion for them, that really helps us give them grace and helps us listen to them, maybe through their hurt, and hear the real issue or the real concern that they're trying to talk to us about. Then also be thinking about how can you best respond to your partner when you go back. Try to think through what they're really trying to say. What are they really feeling? Rather than thinking about how to win the argument, think about how can you make this a win-win for both of you. Not to the extent that you're giving up something that's really important to you, but how can you help your partner feel heard, understood, make them feel a little better, compromise a little bit. That will go a long way to building and strengthening the relationship and resolving things when you go back. So I hope this has helped, talking about
what to do and not do, what to think about and not think about while you're on your timeout.
Thanks for joining me today. I'm honored to be on this journey of change with you, and I hope I've helped you in some way. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. We'd love to hear from you. Also, be sure to hit the like button, share this with others who might find it helpful, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our future videos. For more resources, head to our website, AnaniasFoundation.org. Until next time, take care and remember, change is possible.